Welcome to the Goliath Sourcing Academy podcast, where we talk all things property deal sourcing, packaging, business systems, and outsourcing. Whether you're sourcing for yourself, packaging deals for others, or a bit of both, then you're listening to the right podcast. Get more strategies, tactics, and tips for sourcing killer property deals over at GoliathSourcingAcademy.com. Now, here are your hosts, Mark Dunsmore and Brad Lazarus.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Goliath Sourcing Academy podcast. My name is Brad Lazarus and I'm here with Mark Dunsmore.
Hello everybody. You didn't introduce me as co-host today. I'm just now Mark Dunsmore.
Just some random person on the other end of the line.
Just wait, season 3 you'll just be going, and it's Mark.
So it's session 12 of the Goliath Sourcing Academy podcast. This is season 2. Now again, I've got terribly mixed up with my naming convention, so just think of this as session 12, but we're in season 2. So, how have you been, Mark? You're vibed. I've never seen Mark so vibed as when we first started the Goliath Sourcing Academy, but you're really excited about stuff, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I suppose we've got really, really big things going on, haven't we, really?
There's a lot happening.
There's a lot happening, both...
And you were down in London last week, which must have been a big thing for you to come to London.
In London, down south. Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was... Yeah, that was a real experience. We were looking at Big Ben.
We actually had our meeting in a room. It was actually the Royal Festival Hall upstairs, but it just looks over Big Ben. I chose that location for you.
Yes, and it was nice. It was really good. It was the lift actually sang to you as you were coming up, which was a real experience. And then there were just random orchestras playing around the place.
Yeah,
don't get that up north.
Vibrant and cultural we are down here.
No, exactly. But then equally on the flip side, I had 3 people selling me a big issue. One side of the bridge, the other side of the bridge, and then at the front of the festival.
I know.
If that's not oversubscription to a patch, I don't know what it is.
And you didn't buy any, did you?
No, I did not. No, unfortunately not. I'm not a believer. I heard a story once that there was a chap. I'm not sure where he was, but. He finished his day selling the big issue and then got into his Porsche and drove home.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so
makes you wonder.
It does. Although to be fair, we did walk past one on the way back, didn't we? Who looked like he'd spent his big issue sales on beer.
Yeah, it's a bit of special brew. But no, what I was more referring to was the fact that you went on Kevin Wright's course.
Yes. Well, that was in Leeds.
So, yeah, that was.
That was up north.
That was in Leeds, and that was a week later, wasn't it? But tell us what because you came back absolutely raving about that, and I don't know if anybody's seen your review on your Facebook. On your Facebook, I sound like a 75-year-old. on your Facebook. No, on your profile page, I think it was. But you also shared it inside the Goliath Sourcing Academy Facebook group as well, didn't you?
Yes, I did. And those of you who know me, I don't rave about other courses that much, just because I don't really think the quality of some of the courses out there is worth raving about. And, people I think genuinely trust my judgment now in terms of courses that I do review and certainly recommend. And that Kevin's was, I've been in property for a long time. I know a fair bit. Hopefully people listening will, at least agree with me a little bit that I know a bit about property. And it was just mind-blowing, I think, having your sort of concept of property investment opened up to a whole new strategy, I suppose, with, great returns. And it's just outside of the box thinking, which, of course, is what we at Goliath are a massive fan of. And I think just that in itself, when we spoke, when I told you about it, Brad, you were just as, I think you were excited by me being excited, but...
Yeah, well, I'm always excited when you're excited, because it shoves you into action. Not that you're not doing anything otherwise, but you get a right. But I think this is about new ideas, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Because this is all just about ideas and fresh thinking and thinking. You know, we kind of talk about thinking outside the box, yeah, but it's just about new ideas which spark different kind of thought patterns in your head.
Yeah.
But a lot of people go, oh, I need some new ideas, and they kind of almost expect the ideas to land on their lap.
Yeah, or force things that aren't actually ideas. They're just sort of concepts that have been planted in their mind by someone else that has come up with an idea, which is something we've noticed recently with some of the trainers, isn't it? That everyone seems to keep jumping on the same bandwagon as each other when you get emails through from their mailing list, and we're sort of looking, going, you know, is this a genuine idea? Is this just jumping on this bandwagon that everyone seems to be jumping on? Whereas, you know, we look for things that both. I suppose one of the biggest things for us, Brad, is that we look for stuff that will benefit us as a business, as a sourcing business, not something that we think we can monetize by teaching. I think that's right. That's what I think is a big difference, you know, for us. I mean, we would say that, but
no, but I think that's a good insight, because at the moment I'm like tearing my hair. I say tearing my hair out. It's meant to be fun, but I'm tearing my hair out testing Facebook ads for lead generation for property sourcing, to source property deals. But we're doing that for solutions rather than doing that for the academy.
Exactly.
You know, we're doing that to source property deals for the Goliath Property Solution. So we're doing it for ourselves. Ultimately, we know that it's going to eventually, once I've cracked that code, we can then offer that inside the academy and help people to do exactly the same thing. But I think you're right. We're doing it for ourselves first and foremost.
And that was exactly the excitement for following Kevin's course. You know, it's something that we're going to be doing for ourselves, but equally offering it to our sort of investors as well. So we're going to be doing it on solutions. We're going to be doing it from an internal acquisitions point of view. You know, in our London meeting, we had a big, massive structural meeting about how all the Goliath companies in the group have been formed, which was a really good exercise, because actually, I suppose to glance over that would be a little bit unfair, because I think if the listeners are listening and you've got a business, one of the best things I think we've done is structure the business out the way we did. So just quickly, just because we don't want to rant for too long, because we could go on about this all day, but when we had our operations meeting in London, we organised, we wrote out an organisational chart for the Goliath group, because what we found, I'm sure a lot of people will find this and that are listening will resonate with this, is we just felt like we were busy, we were doing things, we were you know, very successful in what we did, but we were kind of stuck. You're almost sort of at a point where we want to grow the business massively, but we were kind of in that sort of lull phase where everything was just sort of plateauing almost. And since the organisational chart was drawn up, which is literally, we just listed every job in the company. If we had a staff of 1,000 people, we have literally put every job within the businesses that we have, the core companies. We've structured everything out, and since then, I don't know about you, Brad, but I've been absolutely fired up with my role to play, and that is hence the Kevin course. You know, Kevin's course really cemented in the fact that I'm taking charge of our internal acquisitions now and our larger projects, and also another big project that we'll be talking about in the future, but I won't tell anyone about that yet. But it's another huge project that we're taking on as well. And we're just fired up. I'm just absolutely psyched. And I think if everyone does it, you might well find that what's holding you back might actually just separating it all out. It's part of the E-myth as well, if anyone's listening to
the E-myth, it's a big, well, that's kind of where the idea, again, just an idea, isn't it? So that where the idea came from, the E-myth, Michael Gerber's book, which is to basically create an organizational chart of your business, even if you're the only one in it. you create the tree graph. You're the chairman at the top. Then there's the CEO, and you've got all your departments. Even if you're doing all of those jobs at the moment, just plot that out. Just put that down on paper. Draw your tree, your organizational chart, and see where you sit. See what sits within, and then you might be able. Like we identified a number of different positions that we could outsource quite quickly to help grow that department. We wouldn't have been able to spot those so easily had we not drawn out that organizational chart, I think. So
yeah, it was a very interesting exercise.
It was a good one, yeah. And there's actually an app that I talk about in terms of where do you find these ideas? Well, you find them from reading books, blog posts, listening to podcasts, doing all that good stuff. And actually in the lab with Brad today, there's an app which I don't hear about a lot, which allows you to consume a lot of ideas very quickly. Teaser.
I know, there was a segue if
Teaser.
ever there was one.
Gonna leave it at that. Anyway, should we tell people what's on the show today?
Absolutely.
We've got the Goliath Facebook group. Yeah. I think we need to move on. Goliath Facebook group Q&A session. What's the question? Who's it from this week?
So a good question this week, and one that we get asked fairly regularly. It's from Ranjiv Gadhvi, and his question this week is: what would be the best pitch when calling or receiving calls from estate agents in relation to the rent-to-rent strategy, sort of minimizing rejections, etc. So that's a good one, that one. And I know one that a lot of our listeners are rent-to-renters, so they're looking rent-to-rent both packaging and for themselves. So that will be a good one for you, hopefully.
Good stuff, excellent. And sourcing the mark this week, what you got?
So this is, it was another question actually from the Facebook group, but I thought, you know what, this one's a really important one, and one that I'm sure any of you out there who are sourcing afar, so sourcing in an area that's not necessarily local to you, could benefit from this, which is how do you source outside your local area when you are unable to view the property yourself? So it's a good one, that one.
Good one, I like that. Okay.
What about you?
And in the lab with Brad this
Tell
week.
us more following your teaser.
Yeah. Well, I'll tease you with some more. This is the second part in the two-parter, which is the productivity apps for property sources and how to use them. So got some apps about helping you create kind of processes and procedures in your business. Got an app which allows you to see the behavior of an email recipient, which enables you to kind of better gauge how you're going to maybe follow up an email and therefore be more productive with your time. And there's also the one that I mentioned earlier about how you can kind of consume loads of ideas quite quickly. So I'll leave it at that. Does that sound interesting?
Sounds good. The second part's following the cliffhanger of the last episode.
Yes, absolutely. So, okay, on that note, let's get on with the show.
Now it's time for the Goliath Facebook group Q&A session. Got any burning property sourcing related questions? Tap into the minds of hundreds of property pros just like you inside our free Facebook group. Head over to www.goliathfbgroup.com.
Okay, so again, as we alluded to a little bit earlier, this week's Q&A question is from Ranjiv from the Facebook group, and it is: what would be the best pitch when calling or receiving calls from estate agents in relation to the rent-to-rent strategy? Now, with agents, the biggest part of working with an agent or trying to get an agent on side with your strategies, with what you want to get out of them in terms of the deals that you want them to send you, the first thing I really have to highlight is don't expect to walk into an agent having never spoken to them before, build rapport in that first meeting, who you'll probably not be speaking with a relevant person anyway, and then expect the deals to just flow in, because it won't happen. Too many newbies out there think that they can just walk into an agent, They have a good conversation. The chances are that the agent goes, oh, yeah, that sounds really interesting. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, no, that sounds really good. Yeah, what we'll do is we'll keep you, in fact, yeah, we'll have a look through our portfolio and we'll tell you what might be of interest. We'll send you the details through. Now, I know a lot of you might walk out of the agent thinking, yes, success. But I can tell you now the chances of them sending you anything are so slim that it really doesn't work that way. Now, if you get an agent that sends you the deals, then you need to keep a hold of them because they are a rarity rather than the norm. So the first thing to remember when you are looking at working with estate agents is build that relationship with them. So just make sure that you're in regular contact. You're not one of those investors that just said, oh, I'm looking for properties where the landlord's struggling to rent them and then walk out and expect them to be your best mates. You need to just keep phoning them. You need to keep reiterating what you want and do this on a weekly basis. So you phone them every week. Just say, have you got anything? Is that property that the landlord's struggling with? Is it still available? Would they entertain a long-term rental? And just keep that phone call coming in. Visit them if you're local. Visit them on a weekly basis. But they're a slow burner. You've got to work hard at relationships with agents. The only surefire way to get agents contacting you with deals regularly is if you complete on one quickly and they see how easy it is, and then they will start to send you deals through. But until then, you are going to have to work hard. But some of the things that you need to be making sure of when you're speaking with a specific relevance to the rent-to-rent strategy is the agent works on behalf of the landlord. So you're going to have to go in with two separate angles, really. The first angle is that an agent is always looking to impress their client, the landlord. Now, the way that an agent impresses a landlord is to get the maximum amount of rent in the shortest amount of time possible to the best possible tenants. Now, that in itself is very difficult to do from an agent's point of view. But if they take you on a rent-to-rent basis, if the landlord takes you on via the agent on a rent-to-rent basis, what you're selling to that agent is what they can then offer to the landlord. So you're offering them a let where you will take that property on as quickly as possible. You're offering a guaranteed rent from a company to the landlord, so the landlord doesn't have to worry about voids. And you'll even refurbish the property and take care of ongoing reactive maintenance during that tenancy. That in itself is music to a landlord's ears. Now, what you'll probably be saying to yourselves is, right, that's great, but if I'm not speaking to the landlord directly, how do I get that message across via the agent? Because the agent doesn't necessarily, they're not necessarily going to be on side. Now, the way to work an agent, to get an agent on your side, is you need to highlight the benefits to the agent. So to the agent, again, you can go through the fact that you'll let the property immediately. But what you can also offer the agent is find out whether they manage the property or not. If they manage the property, what you can do is you can offer them 12 months full management up front as a finder's fee, as a thank you. If they don't manage the property, what you can also offer is you can also offer to double the fee that the landlord pays. So if the landlord pays a tenant find fee, you can offer to double that fee for that referral from the agent. So the agent then is getting double fees for doing very little work. What you also want to do is you want to make sure that you're the one that writes the emails or writes the what you want the agent to say to forward back to their landlord. So you do all the work. So you write the email, you write the offer, you write all the terms and conditions, you write the benefits, and then you just ask the agent to forward that to the landlord on your behalf, because this just cuts out any work that the agent has to do. Because another benefit to the agent, of course, is they don't want to do any work. You can do all the work for them, and all they need to literally do is hit forward, put the landlord's address in it, and send that through. Now, occasionally, what you will also find is that the agent will forward you the email back from the landlord and forget to delete the landlord's email address from the email. So you will also get the landlord's contact details on occasion, so that if the agent does get silly or stops being cooperative, you can actually contact the landlord directly. But that's not necessarily a rule. That's just, it does happen because agents are lazy and they will just forward the email without making any sort of amendments. And the other thing, of course, is that you can take on multiple properties in any one go. So if you can commit to taking on more than one property and they've got more than one property on their books, they're going to get multiple lets, which is going to go towards office targets, especially if they're on a corporate. They're going to get office targets met. If they're in an independent, then less so. But letting more properties does mean a better reputation for the office. So hopefully that helps. It's not necessarily a pitch, Ranjiv. What it is tips and tricks to work with agents and landlords. So you want to get the agent to be passing your message on to the landlord in the best possible way. So those really are the main ways that I would recommend. Speaking from an ex-agent's point of view, that's how I would have been happy to take something forward with a renter if any of them had approached me when I was in agency. So hopefully that helps.
Good stuff. Thank you, Ranjiv.
Thank you.
If anybody's got a question, get yourself over to goliathfbgroup.com. That's a direct link to the Facebook group, and get your question in there, and we can continue the conversation there as well. That's the other thing that's good about the Facebook group. Okay, so next up we have Sourcing with Mark.
Sourcing with Mark. Innovative and advanced strategies for doing better property deals.
Okay, everyone. So on this episode of Sourcing with Mark, I'm going to address a question that was asked within the Facebook group, but I thought it merited a slightly deeper answer to what we would maybe normally go into on the Facebook Q&A. Now, the question came from Scott, and the question was, how do you source outside your local area when you are unable to view the property yourself? Now, this is a really, really good question, and potentially one that a lot of our listeners may encounter. You may find that maybe the deals in your area aren't in abundance, so you have to go a little bit further out. Also, if you are in full-time employment, or you are in employment that takes up a lot of your day, unfortunately, you may not be able to view properties as frequently as you might like. So the whole strategy around viewing properties from afar, we call the virtual viewing. So it's something that we teach in the Academy, and it is specifically for people who source in an area that is not local to them when they are unable to view lots of properties, or they're unable to view the properties at all. So it does happen, you are going to be sourcing, and you may find, especially maybe if you're in London looking for a specific type of strategy, you might find that there's not many deals about. Or what you also might find is you're in an area where it is saturated with other deal sources. And so what happens, especially when you first start out and you're building up a relationship with the agents, you're getting your marketing messages right, sometimes you find that you're competing against other sources, and the deals just get snapped up, or you get gazumped all the time. So what this is, I will just go into detail on how it works, what you do, and then actually the post virtual viewing process as well, because that is just as important as the virtual viewing itself. So on the virtual viewing, what we are going to do is we are going to have the initial contact call with the seller or property owner as you would anyway. So the lead comes in through your Facebook ad, your direct mail campaign, through a private ad, and the seller is interested in speaking with you about what you can do. So you're going to be building up that rapport. You're going to be getting a picture of what that seller, that property owner's circumstances are, in order for you to know what the best deal is going to be. Now, unfortunately, some of you might find that you can't get to the property to do the refurb estimate or to check that the property is going to fit with your requirements. So what you're going to do is we are going to, once we've established that rapport and we've built up a picture of the vendor's property owner's circumstances, we're going to say to them, right, now in order to avoid wasting your time and mine, what we do is we do something called a virtual viewing. What I'm going to do is ask you to take me round the property as though I was a blind person. So you've got to pretend that I am blind, and you've got me, we're linking arms, and you're going to take me around the property and describe the property into as much detail as you can. What this will enable me to do is get a really good picture for the property itself, the layout, and also any works that might be needed. And with all of this information, I'll be able to put an offer forward, and if that offer is suitable, what we'll do is we will arrange a formal inspection of the property where myself or one of my business colleagues will come round and view the property and just make sure everything is as we go through in the virtual viewing. Would that be okay? And they say yes, of course it will be, because they're keen to get an offer from you. Now this process is devised from my days in agency, where I used to value property on a daily basis, and the best way to value property is to follow a very set process. So you follow a set pattern so that every valuation sheet that I filled in was completed in exactly the same way, and it just meant that I then knew the properties. As I looked at the details, I would know that property just from the notes I'd taken. So when you get the vendor, you're going to say, right, we're going to go around the property. You're going to take the viewing checklist, which is the content upgrade this session. So the content upgrade is the viewing checklist. You can download that and print it. And then what we're going to do, we're going to start at the front door. So we're going to start at the point that you access the property. And then we are going to systematically work our way around the property in a clockwise fashion. So you get the seller to describe the hallway. Each room, including hallways, landings, is going to be described in the same way. So we're going to get a set routine going. So we're going to do flooring, walls, ceiling, and then we're going to do doors, woodwork. We're going to go to windows. We're going to discuss the general decor, when it was last decorated, any gas fires, etc. in living rooms. And we're going to have the set process for each room on the basics. So your walls, your ceilings, your woodwork, your doors, your windows. And then there's going to be specific questions you ask in each room, of course. So in the lounge, like I've just mentioned, fireplace, any other sort of specific unique parts to the lounge. Same with dining room, kitchen. We're going to go into the age of the kitchen, the fitted units, how many cupboards are there. And what you're doing is you're getting taken around the property, you're getting a picture of what that property is, so you're getting an idea as to the layout as well. But also what you're doing is you're continuing to build rapport with that seller. You're getting a feel for how much they love their property or how much work is needing doing, and they appreciate that. And sometimes just the fact that you're getting the vendor to talk you around the property gets them to understand just how much work actually might be needed, and it helps you negotiate a much better offer. So this is a really good exercise to do. And as you work your way around, like I say, clockwise, you work your way around the ground floor, you then go up the stairs, you do exactly the same. So work your way clockwise from the stairs, then you work yourself up to the second floor, third floor, however many floors there are. And then as you're going around, just make sure once you've followed your set pattern, you've asked your set questions, you just need to keep mentioning in each room, just is there anything else that draws your attention, whether there might be cracks in the walls, whether there might be a little bit of damp around windows, whether there might be redecorating needed, any sort of, is there any woodworm, things that they might not have picked up on, but as you're walking around you can draw their attention to certain areas, if that problem might be there, and just see if it is. Now once you get round, vendors will not tell you everything, whether it's deliberate or whether it's just because they have lived in the property for so long, they've just completely ignored certain things. Vendors will not tell you everything. So it is your job on the virtual viewing to ensure that you ask as many questions as possible as you go around. This process shouldn't be a 5-minute process. You should be on the phone for a good 15, 20 minutes, even half an hour getting this done. So just make sure the vendor knows that and they're not rushing you around. And then always let the vendor know that once that virtual viewing has been done, you're going to go away and do the numbers because as you've been working your way around, you've been taking notes and you've been making a note of how much each item that needed refurbishment might cost. Once you've got all that information, you can make an offer. That offer is subject to a formal viewing taking place. So whether that's yourself, you take the time to travel to that property now that you know it is as good as a done deal if the numbers stack up and the viewing was accurate. Or you can arrange for someone else to come along and view the property on your behalf. Now, there are companies out there now that offer this as a service. They just go and view the property for you. They put together a report and they send it out to you and just confirm whether the details you took down were correct, accurate or not. Now, I don't know. I've never used them. Goliath have never used them, but I'm not sure whether they cover nationally. I don't know the quality of the reports. What I would recommend and what Goliath have done in the past is we have used inventory clerks. So inventory clerks that work with letting agents, we've asked them to specifically carry out a full inventory of this condition of the property and just ask them to pay special attention to certain key things like the cracking in the walls, anything that might be seen as potentially structural, that sort of thing. They're not surveyors, remember, so don't ask them too much, but if you just explain you just want to know of anything majorly obvious, then they'll be more than happy to provide that report. And usually it's about £50, between £50 and £75, but it's worth it all day long because that deal is either going to be worth a BMV to you or you're going to package and sell that for £3,000. It's going to be worthwhile paying that £75 inventory. Now, if the inventory or the check comes back, or the surveyor, if you've sent out a surveyor or a friend or family member come back, you can make sure that the offer still stands, no extra works have been noted, or if there are extra works, you just need to negotiate a little bit more, put that offer back to the seller and take it from there. And you will find that by doing this virtual viewing, from doing it remotely, you can secure a lot more deals and waste a lot less time going out and viewing stuff that maybe isn't necessarily suitable. So that's really it in a nutshell. The virtual viewing, the content upgrade is the viewing checklist, so you can use that as a crutch to walk you around, almost like a script. You just follow that around and you will find it a very interesting process. And just one thing I would recommend before I go today, have a practice on friends and family before you do this with a live person. Not that your friends and family aren't live, of course, but if you do this with your friends and family, just go through trial runs, give it a test, make sure that you get all the information down accurately, and then you can go on to actually speaking with people that have properties that are on the market to sell. So hopefully you found that useful, and that's another session of Sourcing with Mark. Happy sourcing.
Great stuff, as always. Thank you, Mark. So virtual viewing sound great, but potentially an advanced strategy rather than a newbie one, would you say? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say that it's not necessarily something that I would consider an advanced strategy, but what it is something that I would consider very difficult to do without practice. So because you are going to be viewing a property virtually, it helps to have viewed properties physically first. So if you are a complete newbie and you've never viewed a property before or never viewed a property in the level of detail that you need to view property when you're sourcing property deals, I would recommend practicing locally first, where you can go and view properties physically. Trying to build rapport with a vendor is difficult enough on the phone anyway. It's actually much easier to build rapport with vendors, property owners in person. So getting practice by doing that in your local sort of area where you can go and do the viewings, even if you're working full time, you can go do the viewings on an evening or on a weekend, and just get a real feel for practicing going around properties and looking in a lot more detail than what you may be used to. Because then when you do the virtual viewings, when you do start sourcing properties in a further away from you, it means you've already got a pattern, a routine in your head that is going to help you get the level of detail that you need in order to be able to assess refurb estimates, assess the property itself, be able to get a virtual picture of what the layout is, because without that sort of level of information, the offers that you provide, the offers that you give are going to potentially be very inaccurate, which means you're going to spend a lot of time then readjusting your offers, which equally doesn't go down as well, especially if the mistake was yours and not the seller's. So it's certainly something that I would practice, and I would go and view stuff physically first, even if it's your local area and properties that you're never going to buy. Just go and view them, get practice for having a look in each room, look for potential problems, and then virtual viewings, certainly a little bit more advanced, so I would practice on friends and family like I mentioned in Sourcing with Mark, but certainly the more practice you have, the better you will get, and just get cracking. The best way to learn is to take action. So practice if you can physically first, but don't be put off by the virtual viewing. But I would practice on friends and family who I'm assuming all have houses or flats or something they're living in. So you can practice with them and go from there.
Good stuff. Sound advice. Love it. Okay, so let's move on to In the Lab with Brad.
In the Lab with Brad, marketing, systems, and outsourcing hacks for property pros.
Hello and welcome to In the Lab with Brad. On this episode, productivity apps for property sourcers and how to use them, part 2. Now, as I say, this is part 2 of a two-parter. You don't need to have listened to part 1 at all, but there's some great other apps that I talk about in that segment, and you can find that at goliathsourcingacademy.com/session11. That's goliathsourcingacademy.com/session11. So let's get straight into the apps in this episode. First up is an app called Downcast. Now, this is a podcast player for the iOS, for the iPhone, essentially. Now, as far as I'm aware, this isn't available for Android. Now, I used to use the native player on the iPhone, the native podcast player that comes kind of pre-installed, but I just did not get along with it. It just didn't work for me. I listen to quite a lot of podcasts, and I like to kind of know where I'm at with certain ones, and it just didn't work for me really. So the great thing I kind of found Downcast, and it allows you for a start to create kind of podcast playlists, which I found really useful. So I kind of create a playlist for next up, the ones that I'm about to podcasts that I'm about to want to listen to. I can also create a playlist for like podcasts that I kind of go back to and re-listen, and give them different kind of categories and stuff. Now, I'm also a big one for jumping around while listening to podcasts, and Downcast is great for this. Now, a lot of podcast players give you like the 15 or 30 seconds jump forward and jump back option, but you also get you get that obviously in Downcast, but you also get a 2-minute jump forward, which is great. I find that really useful. Sometimes I find when you start listening to a podcast, there's I hope we're not guilty of this, Mark and I, but there's a good like 10 minutes at the beginning of a lot of podcasts where they're just talking about themselves a lot of the time, and I kind of get a bit bored with that if I know the presenter and I know the story and just want to kind of move on. So, having that 2-minute function in there is great. What's also good about it as well is you get this quick swipe function, so you can swipe the screen left and right, and that goes forward 15 seconds or back 15 seconds, which is a really nice feature, and I use that a lot. So that works really well. Now, there's also loads of options available on Downcast for kind of speed listeners everywhere. All you speed listeners out there, you can get from normal speed up to 2.5 times the speed, and actually everything in between as well. I'm not a huge one for kind of speed listening, but there's lots of different speeding up options there. So that's Downcast. Next is an app called process.st. Now, this is a great tool for managing kind of operating procedures, regular recurring tasks in your business, a general kind of workflow facilitation in your business. So it's basically it's a cloud-based checklist system where you store your kind of checklists and procedures related to those checklists. So the checklists are actually created in the software. It's cloud-based, as I say, so you or anyone in your team can access it from wherever they are. And it allows you to track when tasks have been done, as well as also put the instructions related to every task embedded within the checklist. And it has great integration with all other major apps on the market as well, which is really important as you start to link and use those checklists and procedures related to those particular apps that you're using in other areas of the business. So let's say that, for example, that you want to send an offer letter to a vendor, to a seller. All the data might be in your CRM. So let's say that you change the stage or the status of that deal to send offer letter. That might then trigger the checklist. It might then trigger the checklist creation inside process.st. So the person that is assigned to the task is then alerted that they need to send the offer letter. They go into process.st and they work through the checklist in process.st, and all the instructions related to what they're actually meant to do, i.e. what those different tasks are in the checklist, are all within process.st, and they tick them off. There's like check boxes at every single step of that checklist. So another great feature is that process.st will pull necessary data from, say, your CRM. So it will pull that seller, that vendor's details from your CRM into what you're working on in that checklist, and then it can also then pass that data into a document, for example, which may form a contract. So it would then maybe send it to HelloSign, for example, and that might get sent. Well, if it was a contract, it would send it to HelloSign. If it was just a straight offer, you might send it to a merge file, for example, in Word, and then PDF that and send that on its way. So that's a great app, process.st. Number 3, Xero. Now, I'm a huge fan of Xero. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and I'm sure you've heard the name, and many of you may already use it, which is great. It's basically a small business cloud-based accounting software that just works beautifully well. It has all the features that you'd expect from a cutting-edge service like this. So it will link with your bank account, give you multi-level permission access, and so on and so forth. But what I really love about it is its ability to so quickly and easily create reports. So, for example, just in one click, I can create a P&L report or a VAT report or a cash flow report. And it's just so easy to do. And it works nice if you're managing properties as well. Maybe you're managing rent to rent or buy to let. It works well for that. I won't go into any more depth about that, but it has quite nice features to be able to manage individual properties. So you can create like kind of sub P&L reports, for example. Now, for years, I used to use a local bookkeeper to do all my books every month, every quarter. They would then spend time creating a VAT return, and this all cost a significant amount of money year on year. So here's how we do it now. All the invoices are created inside of Xero. or at least they're recorded inside of Xero. So any purchases that are made, the receipt is emailed into our account specific Xero inbox. This is then picked up by our bookkeeper, who's actually based in Jaipur in India. His name is Amit. He will then process that receipt inside of Xero. So I used to pay 20 to 30 pounds an hour for a bookkeeper. Now, when you've got quite a lot of transactions going through, it can be quite costly to have a bookkeeper. Amit charges $10 an hour, and I got him from Upwork. And as with everything on Upwork, we didn't find him first time. We had to kiss a few frogs to find Amit, but he's just as good, and actually goes so far as to say he's actually better than the bookkeeper based down the road in the accountancy firm in London. He's that good. So now, not only do we have a far more cost-effective bookkeeping solution across all the businesses, but it costs us less than half of what it used to cost us. Okay, next is an app called Yesware. Now, Yesware is an email tracking tool. Now, in short, it allows you to see whether the recipient of your email opened it, and if you have any attachments or links, whether they actually interacted with them or not, whether they clicked on them or whether they downloaded them. Now, this isn't the same as something like MailChimp. That's different. It's not a bulk email system where you send multiple emails to a list at once, and then you can see kind of open rates and that type of thing. Yesware sits inside your Gmail, so when you send an email and the recipient opens it, you'll be alerted that the recipient has opened it. So why is that useful? Well, let's say that you're trying to connect with an estate agent, for example. You send them something with a plan to follow them up. So you've sent something to them and you plan to follow them up. Wouldn't it be much more effective use of your time to follow them up, knowing that they had opened your email, and even better still, that they had downloaded the attachment that you sent them? Well, Yesware gives you this information. It tells you that the recipient has done that or not. So now you can make the call knowing that they have the info you need them to have, or in order to make the call a more productive one for you. Okay, so that's the Yesware. So number 5, Blinkist. Now, all the gurus tell us all the time that we need to be reading more books. Now, you see the Facebook posts where people have listed 15 books that they've read in the last 20 minutes or half an hour or something, and you think, how the hell does people find the time to get through everything? Well, I have to say my to-read list sits inside my Amazon account. It's like my Amazon wish list, and it's long, and it doesn't really seem to go down, only up as I add more books to it, and I just can't get through the number of books that business books that I do want to read. So how do you get through all these books? Well, that's where Blinkist comes in. Now, Blinkist have essentially summarized the majority of non-fiction books you likely want to read, and they've created kind of bite-sized chunks. Into bite-sized chunks they call blinks. Now, these are all business books essentially, or non-fiction books, I should say, not specifically business books. So an entire set of blinks, as they call them, they create these maybe 10 to 15 blinks, which are kind of key points in the book, which take up to 15 minutes to listen to or to read. And it's perfectly optimized for mobile, so you can, if you've got 15 minutes, you can, what's the 7 habits of highly successful people? You open up Blinkist, and for 15 minutes later, you've got the key points of the book, essentially. That's what the idea is. Or it allows you to go, okay, well, you know what, I'm going to prioritize. I've got 10 books that I want to read. I'm going to read the blinks of all of them. And then I'm going to decide to spend some time on book number 6 and read that. So really, it's that simple. You really can, essentially can get a whole load of great ideas through Blinkist. So that's Blinkist. I'm going to move on here to number 6, which is Buffer app. Now, Buffer saves you bags of time by allowing you essentially to schedule the publishing of your social media posts. So you can schedule posts weeks in advance or days in advance. So let's say that you have 15 things that you want to post. You can schedule all of them into Buffer for a 6-week period, for example, but you can do that all in the space of 20 minutes. It has other features such as analytics, etc., but even the free version gives you enough to get started with. So number 7 is Podio. Now, I've noticed that a lot of people in property circles tend to talk of Podio as being a CRM system. Now, it is a CRM system, and that's a customer relationship management system, by the way. In my view, it's not a great CRM solution. I'm never quite understood why property kind of communities seem to latch onto that. It can be used as one, and there is that functionality there, but there are far better solutions on the market for CRMs. Now, Podio comes into its own as a project management system or a workflow management system. So it allows you the ability to essentially build apps that facilitate the workflow and tasks within a project. So it would be great for managing a refurb or kind of bringing tenants into properties, tenant management, that type of thing. So in the free resource that I've included with this particular segment, I've included a link actually to a 12-minute video which is demoing how Podio is used to manage a project. So that's well worth taking a look at. And finally, I wanted to give one mention, and I'm sure you guys have all heard of it before because you're such a savvy bunch. Dropbox and Skype. Two pretty obvious ones, two usual suspects that you've probably heard of, as I say, but these two have been around for so many years and they almost kind of get a bit forgotten now. But if you don't know anything about them, you just literally you must know about Skype, but if you don't know about Dropbox, just go to dropbox.com and you should be using Dropbox, or you should be using a version of a Dropbox like the Google Drive or something which basically is cloud-based but also local hard drive based as well. So get as previously, get the full list of links and supporting links to various kind of video tutorials and overviews of all of these apps. You can get that at goliathsourcingacademy.com/session 12.
Well, that was good. Part 2 of the In the Lab with Brad. Part 2 of the apps excitement. I do like apps, though, to be fair. I have to admit,
yeah,
we do like them, don't we?
Yeah,
we joke, but they do make our lives a lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, I think these are kind of apps and softwares and things that make your life easier, streamline your business, enable you to do things quicker in a more automated way, which can only be a help, really. And I think a lot of people are a bit scared, a bit wary of things like an app like Xero, for example. You know, a lot of people still doing their books with a bookkeeper on spreadsheets, which is fine. But something like Xero, I think, offers you so much, a much better solution to that problem of looking at your business. Really, it offers you that. I said it in the segment, which was, you know, you can make if you can go into Xero and it's up to date, and you can click a couple of clicks and you've got a report, you can make much better more sound decisions about the business off the back of that. I know it's helped us massively, hasn't it, in the academy?
It has, and it will be a massive help to solutions as well. Actually, just to know where you're at and pull off different reports, and then of course it's quite an easy file to send to your accountant as well. So you know, for your year-end accounts, you can actually send them your Xero login details. You can set them up as a user, I think, and
yeah, that's right.
And
I think a lot of the accountants really like it. I was talking to in the boot camp. I was talking to Ian Spreadbury, friend of the show.
Yes, hi Ian.
So is that what you're meant to say? Friend of the show.
Friend of the show.
Ian is a partner. Well, I don't think he's a partner. He's he's got an interest in an accountancy firm, and they embrace Xero. Rather than some accountants, which I think kind of almost see it as like business being taken away from them. But yeah, having someone like Amit, who I mentioned in the segment, having a bookkeeper who works inside Xero has just made the world of difference. So that's been great as well. But one of the things that I wanted to kind of have a chat with you about, Mark, was Yesware, which was one of the apps which I mentioned, and this gives you the ability to be able to kind of see the behavior of a recipient of an email that you send. Now, I talked about how we can use, be able to see the recipient maybe having opened a document, and therefore you can prepare better for the call when you follow up that recipient, maybe an agent of some description. I don't know, is there any other areas that you think something like that might be able to work in sourcing?
Being able to tell when someone's read your email?
Yeah.
Well,
what other?
Yeah, absolutely. I think knowing that a seller has opened emails, and especially if, like you said, Brad, about being able to track links and things, you can be very smart with property sourcing. If you're sending seller emails with offers and you attach your offer in a letter, you can tell that they've opened that offer and read the offer letter, and I suppose that gives you an idea as to whether they are considering it or not. Because unfortunately, as we know, some people tell you to send them an offer, but they're not really that bothered. They're just saying it to get you off the telephone. So being able to sort of track people opening things, and it gives you an idea then for the follow-up. You can obviously follow up that call just at the time when they've read the email, but they don't know that. So,
exactly, yeah. I mean, you don't want to get too stalkerish about it, a bit freaked
yeah.
about it, do you? But you might want to leave it half an hour.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
it's how powerful is that? Is that you've had an alert from Yesware have alerted you that the recipient, the seller, has opened the attachment, your offer, and then within an hour, you're calling them and it's fresh in their mind. That's a fantastic use of your time and potentially really effective in terms of converting more of those leads into actual deals themselves. So I think Yesware is great. I've used it a lot over the years. So I would highly recommend that. So, okay, well look, that is in the lab with Brad. Maybe we should just reiterate to everybody that they can get your free resource, which is the virtual viewing checklist. So if you go to goliathsourcingacademy.com/session12, you can get Mark's Sourcing with Mark's virtual viewing checklist, and then you can get in the lab with Brad this week is the productivity apps links list part 2. That's also got as part 1. That's also got some links to various different videos, which it can fast track you. So they're kind of short tutorials, how to use the apps most effectively, that type of thing. So there's loads more information on that download as there is in the virtual viewing checklist. So go and check those out /session12. So other than that, have we got anything else to talk about this week, or are we done?
I think that's us. I don't think.
Yeah.
I think we've gone on enough at the beginning.
Yeah, I think we've got quite a long one, and my segment was a little bit long this week as well. So
they're getting longer, Brett. You're losing discipline.
I know. So much hot air to spout. Okay, cool. Well, look, that's it for this week, and thanks again, everyone, for listening. If you are enjoying the podcast, please, we would love it if you would share the link with people, friends, family, other people in property, other investors. It would really, really be appreciated if you could do that. It helps massively to get the word out there so that we can help as many people as possible. So on that note, I will leave you with Mark to say the goodbyes.
Yeah, thanks again, everybody, as always, and remember, happy sourcing.